Perhaps now is a good time for us to focus on a more in-depth analysis of this investment case. And to do that, we have three experts who are going to take us on that journey, if you will, beginning with Dr. Jeremy Farrar. He is the Chief Scientist at the World Health Organization.
And I can only apologise for not being able to join you in person, but listening to those earlier talks was truly inspirational. And on behalf of everybody at the World Health Organization and myself, just huge support for the 8th replenishment round of the Global Fund. The progress has been absolutely extraordinary. And when I first trained in medicine, HIV was untreatable. We hadn't had any new drugs for tuberculosis since the 1960s and 70s, and malaria was going backwards in many parts of the world. That has been overturned, largely due to the work of the Global Fund. And sometimes when you make such progress, you can start taking it for granted. You can think maybe we don't need those things anymore. But the truth is, we are at an inflection point, as Peter has just described. If in pandemics such as HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria, you get behind the dynamics of the infection, you will fall behind, and then regaining where you were becomes almost impossible for years, if not decades, or a generation. We are at that inflection point at the moment. We have the capacity to do this. The question is, do we have the will? Do we have the commitment? And do we have the responsibility that comes with that? And we need to be honest about the implications of acting and making progress and turning Peter's vision, as I've just said, into reality within the coming years. Or we have them, and we should be judged by history by allowing the pandemics to go in a different direction. The SDGs are critical. The SDG 3 is obviously central to this. And let's be, again, honest and say we cannot achieve not just SDG 3, but we cannot achieve all of the SDGs without addressing these three pandemics. That's how important. That is what is at stake now. And the reason for that is the political uncertainty of the moment, the geopolitics, the questioning of the value of investing in global health. But we also face some scientific challenges. The post or peri-pandemic period that we're in at the moment put these three diseases back to some degree, although the fact that the Global Fund was so involved in this and in COVID made a difference that we didn't slip as far back as we might have done without the Global Fund. But we should also acknowledge there is drug resistance in tuberculosis, increasing drug resistance on the continent of Africa for malaria, and there is the risk of mistrust, misinformation, turning back the advances that have been made in HIV. And there is the risk of losing the trust of the communities with which the Global Fund works so closely. That integration into communities is just so important. And as we think of our responsibilities here, if we back away from this, if we leave communities, then the trust in those communities by decisions sometimes made a long way away from where they are will be very difficult to regain, and the polarization that's happening in many of our societies will fall behind. The role of the Global Fund in the three diseases is extraordinary, but don't underestimate the role of the Global Fund played during the pandemic. Don't underestimate the role the Global Fund plays in diseases way beyond these three. Oxygen, as Peter just said, diagnostics in many health systems and services, the very health services that people depend on every Monday, every Tuesday, every week, every month of the year, not just when a pandemic hits, but all of the time. That trust in issues which are there for people every day is what builds the trust that when ultimately another pandemic hits, people trust the services that are on offer. The number of lives is extraordinary, but I think we need to also bring it back to individuals, what this means to your brother, your sister, my sister, my children, etc., and also to the very productivity in economies. You cannot have a growing economy with these pandemics out of control. At the same time, we live in a scientific golden age when lenacapavir, pre-treatment, increasing drug treatment for tuberculosis and malaria, and also the coming of vaccines for tuberculosis and malaria, and maybe, who knows, in our lifetimes, HIV. We need to learn how to integrate those into the health services and the systems that operate, and work out to use those interventions in an integrated way rather than seeing it's a choice between one and the other. The Global Fund is at the center of that discussion, along with all of our partners at Gavi, the UNAIDS, WHO, Stop TB, and many others. This is a time of real challenge. And at times of challenge, solidarity becomes increasingly or absolutely critical. WHO stands behind this replenishment. It stands behind the partnership with the Global Fund. We cannot do what we do without that partnership with the Global Fund, which we applaud, respect, and have great affection for. The modelling work that you'll hear about in a minute comes together not from just the Global Fund, but from Stop TB, from UNAIDS, and indeed from the World Health Organization. We stand behind that modelling scientifically, and the impact is clear. And finally, everybody in this room has some degree of power and agency. The responsibility now is to use that power and that agency to make a difference to people's lives all around the world, to make us all safer, and to work with the communities. If we have power and agency, there comes a responsibility to use it. If we don't use it, we will fall behind. Let's not choose that future. This is the moment of inflection, and the decisions we make collectively in the coming weeks will determine how this century pans out. That's how important this inflection point is. Very best wishes for the replenishment round. You have all of our support, both personally and from the World Health Organization. And thank you very much for the honor of being able to join you today.
Dr. Farrar, thank you so very much, not just for the good wishes, but of course for that emphasis on the urgency and the need for us to make sure that we stay focused on the end goal that we're trying to achieve.